driverless cars. Obviously, those are interesting to see get introduced. But the connected home and the digital home is something we've talked about for maybe a decade now, and we're really close to actually making these homes really smarter and more connected. And it's starting with the proliferation of smartphones. Every single person now, at least adults, have a smartphone. You're walking around, you're able to do things like turn on your electricity, monitor energy, and it's fascinating with some of the devices and some of these applications. But CES, there's actually a pretty big internet presence here, which is a little bit different than what I've seen in the past. Another interesting theme, which is something we've talked a lot about at ABR, is the Chinese presence, which, there's very significant Chinese brands, and it's Hisense, ZTE, Huawei, even smartphone companies like OnePlus, where, they're still small in the whole relative scheme of things, but their devices are just very nice, and it's really, it's interesting to get to see all these new devices out there.
It's interesting, Brad, that you illustrate that the Chinese are making a big presence at the CES, because, it didn't take very long for a new startup, Xiaomi, to become one of the biggest smartphone players in that space, overtaking Samsung. What sort of presence have they had at the show?
Yeah, there's presence from a lot of Xiaomi has obviously done quite well, and selling over 60 million phones this year, a lot more than people I think would have thought in mainland China. But again, OnePlus is a smaller company that when I was recently in Asia a couple weeks ago, it's really got a pretty big buzz, and the specs on the phone are very good. We're talking same specs as a Galaxy smartphone, and it's half the price, and it's a great sleek design. So Xiaomi and some of these other brands are really there's big presence. But this trend started a few years ago when Hisense and TCL came on the floor and took some really big property on the floor, and it's been a trend that's not going to reverse. It's going to continue.
What about these driverless cars, Brad, that we've been talking about in the show today? How dominant are they at the CES this year?
There's tremendous buzz on all these driverless cars. In terms of CES it's a really fascinating conference in terms of there's a lot of devices that will come to market in a relatively short period of time, but then there's things that are more futuristic, and I put that in this category where it's really neat and interesting to see these driverless cars, and they look amazing, but this isn't anytime soon. So the buzz is there. It's exciting. But there really is a lot of buzz, so I don't want to downplay it, but it's just not something that's going to come to market. But what it does actually, show and solidify is just the amount of electronics that are going into automobiles, and that's a major area of growth. So I look at a company called Microchip, where they do microcontrollers. It's trading at a discount to the S&P, and it's just one of those stocks that you have a nice dividend yield. It plays into connectivity and smarter homes, and it's just one of those, you can play off the theme of a CES that's a multi-year trend of connectivity.